Issue 245. The first few panels are wasted on having the characters repeat dialogue from the last few panels of the last issue, like it's Fleetway comic, because readers are goldfish apparently. Thrash roars at Sonic, using his Soundwave attack to send him flying, as I wonder why Sonic, running at the speed of sound at him, didn't just let him attack him long before he could ever roar at him. Meanwhile, Crabmeat, who's covered in kudzu, says that thanks to this he's adapted and rainwater can't short-circuit him anymore, even though the kudzu's main weakness is supposed to be water. Then his dialogue implies he's not Crabmeat, but the person talking is actually the kudzu hybrid Hydra itself, talking through a badnik he's stuck in. Even though the kudzu has never, aside from the last time we saw it, been able to talk. This is when he activates Metal Knuckles. Meanwhile, Thrash says that while the echidnas were innocent, so were his people, so justice is served. Why is he just admitting the echidnas were innocent if he thinks they deserve this? Like he said, so were. Thrash says that they're even because now they're both the last of their kind. He explains that the echidnas mess with their genes trying to create the devil dogs, and nobody remembers why. Mums and dads sired pups instead of babies, and each generation, as they get bred out of existence, is told the stories of who did that to their people. Well, maybe their people were constantly bothering the echidnas, so the echidnas thought this was the best solution to get rid of them, and simply destroying them all at once with a laser blast would have made too much sense. We're only hearing Thrash's side of the story on this. Knuckles yells at Thrash that the echidnas could have helped to reverse the damage to his people. Too late now, unless they can turn the devil dogs into Thrash's kind with magic. Thrash reasons that if he gave the echidnas enough time, they'd do the same thing again, and he finished it. But I said earlier that he's just the product of a failed experiment, so how is this consistent with him? He wasn't literally created through an experiment that failed. Knuckles gets attacked by a devil dog that's Thrash's sister, and Knuckles tells Sonic to keep them off him, relying on him when he just got effortlessly sent away by Thrash's sound waves. I guess the reason Thrash hasn't done that to Knuckles is so he could keep talking to him to try to justify his revenge. Sonic says that he needs Tails and Amy to do a spinny thing with Tails' tails to corral the devil dogs for a few minutes. Amy spins her hammer and Tails spins his tails, seeming to create a tornado blow him with wind magic, has Tails lampshades that they've gotta come up with a better name for their moves than this. This creates a bunch of tornadoes against the dogs. And I'm sure if they did create a better name for the move, it would take longer to say, so it wouldn't be worth it in the heat of battle. Knuckles shouts at Thrash, "You took my family, the love of my life! You robbed it all from me because of your stupid, short-sighted obsession!" Yeah! And remember guys, Flynn wrote the concept, not Penders. I don't understand why he couldn't have just let the echidnas exist in Albion off-screen instead of making this overly depressing twist that sucks even more originality and uniqueness away from the comics, just to make them more like the games. Did the executives force him to do this in particular? You keep seeing Dr. Mega being used in the comic. He just isn't shown. Sonic runs in a circle, creating a fence around some devil dogs to trap them, and calls Tails' little bro, saying he did a good job. Knuckles has Thrash on the ground, so instead of knocking him out by punching him in the head, he just stands there and expects him to give him the warp ring. This idiot ball forces the concept of Thrash being able to say that he can't take him in a fair fistfight and send him away with some sonic ways. Fortunately, Knuckles crawls up to him using his climbing ability on the ground to stay there and punches him. The heroes then get targeted from a distance by someone who says they don't need to reveal themselves after all. Before Tails can get the warp ring back, the obvious solution is stubbornly ignored, like with Metal Sally, because Metal Knuckles attacks them, grabbing Tails and Amy by some vines. Then it's revealed that it wasn't the kudzu who was watching from a distance, but a robot who's in favor of the heroes, obviously Shard, who worries about getting involved because he has to observe and report. With all the heroes distracted by Metal Knuckles, Thrash escapes through his warp ring, because God forbid Knuckles kill him for what he did. Oh no! He killed the Hunter, but a genocidal maniac? Just like the Hunter? That's going too far. Well, at least Knuckles gets allowed to go after him in the warp ring. After a fight with Metal Knuckles, he seems to be steaming and worried as Sonic says he's smashed everything he's using. including the badniks from the use. The robot forms a giant robot out of any machinery he can find, tying it all together with kudzu plants, but fortunately it gets blasted apart with a single attack, and Chard shows up, saying happily, "Yes way! Do you know how hard it was to track you guys down? Why did he have to reveal himself to them instead of just continuing to hide, or blasting it while not showing himself? Well, maybe he hasn't actually defeated the robot and they're gonna spot him helping eventually anyways, so he might as well reveal himself right away to be epic." Well, out of character moments next time. This issue is by Ian Flynn, and was about Thrash sending all of the echidnas away with a warp ring because he was allowed to keep that warp ring earlier for some reason, and found some notes telling him to go to Albion and make the warp ring work somehow. Because of all this contrivedness in the lawsuit removing the rights to the echidnas in the middle of the arc, Thrash gets rid of all the echidnas just like that, making Knuckles officially the biggest failure of a Guardian ever in the Sonic franchise, despite being the most powerful one. What a way to gut his effectiveness. And I'm surprised we didn't learn where Thrash sent them this issue. I assumed that we would. I assumed that you sent it to the Twilight Cage, but how would Thrash know about that? Also, I'd like to point out that we've seen the future with Lara Sue multiple times, and while you could say that 25 and 30 years later story arcs aren't canon, that's not really true because we clearly see a picture of Lara Sue and her future freedom fighters in Silver's future. So even if those particular stories aren't canon, the Lara Sue and the future freedom fighters are supposed to eventually exist in the future in canon, aren't they? Unless Silver's picture was from another dimension? So how is Lara Sue born from Knuckles and Julie Sue if all of the echidnas were gotten rid of by Thrash? This proves that they're destined to be rescued eventually in the continuity, or else she wouldn't have been born and Silver wouldn't have her in the picture. And that's why the reboot isn't canon, because if it happened before Lara Sue could have been born, then Silver wouldn't have even gotten the chance to meet her, and there wouldn't have even been a future to begin with. I at least love that Thrash has a logical reason for hating the echidnas instead of just mere racism like before. His people were driven to extinction by being genetically modified to just give birth to devil dogs instead of their own kind, which is really creative. Why the echidnas couldn't simply kill his people in one go when they must have captured them all to do that to them, I have no idea. But it's certainly a lot more creative. Too bad if they had just killed them, none of this would have happened. So that's the moral of the story, kids. Don't get creative, just shoot them. Or one of them will survive to kill everyone you descended from. And at the end, the kudzu plant robot starts to get attacked by Shard the Metal Sonic. Here's the biggest problem with never resolving the echidnas are gone plot. It could have been resolved in just minutes. Knuckles could find notes on how to supercharge a warp ring just like Thrash did, provided that Thrash didn't just take the notes with him. But even then, it's so intuitive that he should be able to figure it out on his own. Knuckles should be able to just use Mighty's warp ring, supercharge it, and immediately get the echidnas back. We only don't get to see that because of the lawsuit. Sure, he doesn't know where exactly they are, but his first guess should be the Twilight Cage, since that's associated with the echidnas, and that's probably where they all were sent. This could have led to a great story arc where Knuckles traveled dimensions to look for them, and we got to see different dimensions in the multiverse. The problem is that, like with Mecha Sally, it's a problem that can get resolved either really anticlimactically easily, or can get dragged out to infinity with all sorts of lame excuses and never end up resolved. It's one or the other, no middle ground. The worst kind of story arc. There's either an easy solution or none at all. As a result, this whole story concept sticking at all is forced. Plus, we know the echidnas are free in the future, so this whole thing's just a waste of time.